You're the One That I Want, by Giovanna Fletcher. Read by Kate Rawson, Ben Elliot, and Roy Macmillan. If this is love, then love is easy.
It's the easiest thing to do.
If this is love, then love completes me.
Because it feels like I've been missing you.
A simple equation, with no complications to leave you confused.
If this is love, love, love.
Oh, it's the easiest thing to do. McFly.
Firstly, on behalf of my wife and I'd like to thank you all for being here. It means so much to be surrounded by our family and friends on what can only be described as the most important day of our lives.
Maddy, 26 years old. Only 52 feet stood between me and my husband-to-be. All that was left for me to complete the transformation from Miss Maddy Hurst to Mrs. Maddy Miles was to walk that 52 feet and say my vows. Then I'd be able to leave the past behind and look to a future with security, dignity, and the love of a good man, knowing that I deserved to be receiving it. But even though I knew it was what I wanted, it was still the most difficult 52 feet I'd ever had to walk. I knew I was walking away from someone who had the potential to take me to new, dizzying heights with his love. A love that was mine for the taking, but never truly within my reach. Perhaps if the circumstances were different, we'd have had something magical. It pained me to be walking away from those feelings, from him. But I'd said all I needed to say. He knew I loved him, and that my love for him was unconditional, as it always had been. Give Me Joy in My Heart started playing inside the church, tearing me away from my wandering thoughts, and letting me know it was time for my entrance. One by one the bridesmaids calmly walked through the giant wooden archway. Pearl, the last of the bunch, turned to give me a big wink before following suit, the little train of her mint chiffon dress floating behind her. "You ready?" asked my dad, who looked incredibly cute in his light grey suit and emerald green tie, which I noticed was slightly wonky. His salt and pepper coloured hair was mostly covered up by a big top hat, which bizarrely made him appear shorter than usual, even though it gave him extra height. He looked as nervous as I did, something I wasn't prepared for. I straightened his tie and gave him a little nod. He checked over my veil in the way Mum had clearly instructed him to, so that it creased at the sides and not in front of my face. Then he stood beside me and lifted my arm before hooking it through his. "You look beautiful, Maddy," he whispered. "Thanks, Dad," I managed to say, the nerves seeming to have taken hold of me. "Feeling nervous?" Another nod. "You'll feel better when you see him. Come on, grip hold of your old man. It's time for your groom to see his bride," he said, firmly squeezing my arm into his side. At our cue, we started to walk at the steady pace we had agreed on. Not so fast that we were almost running to the altar, but not so slow that people started yawning with boredom either. We'd practiced it that morning to ensure it wasn't a complete disaster. I found myself clutching tightly onto Dad's arm as we turned into the church and walked through its doors. A sea of faces welcomed us. All of the congregation were on their feet, looking at me with the broadest smiles I'd ever seen. And there were so many of them. It was a wonder to think we even knew that many people. During my wedding dress fittings, I was told numerous times to enjoy that.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?